What is the worth of mortal life without a little chaos? My staff has merely been the carrot, and I am the stick. Let the game begin.
The Changeling, a trickster, a schemer, and a cult leader, always present but never seen. He can take on many faces, all but one, the great god Tzeentch himself. Excited to see the deceiving horror in action? You can order or share your thoughts below. In the Realm of Chaos campaign, the Changeling starts his journey of deception and disorder in Nordland. And in the Immortal Empires campaign, he begins his scheming in Stirland. The Changeling operates in the shadows and will never overtly hold a settlement, but this does not make him a horde faction. As he isn't tied to a region, he can roam about the map recruiting units from anywhere and is free from all diplomatic penalties from trespassing. His only goals are to scheme and sow chaos while his cults operate obscured within settlements he has won victory over. After winning a settlement, the Changeling can plant hidden trickster cults to the ends of creating disorder in one form or another. There are two types of building chains, symbiotic and parasitic. Symbiotic buildings help the settlement grow, and of course, this helps the Changeling at the same time. The better a settlement does, the better you do. Parasitic buildings, on the other hand, cause damage and destruction, rotting the settlement and region from within. So there are a few choices to make. Do you want your host settlement to thrive, slowly die, or have a balanced give and take? For the most part, symbiotic buildings won't cause any real issues for the host settlement, and they can be blissful in their ignorance. They will provide you with fewer cult supplies compared to their parasitic counterparts, but that's the trade-off for remaining in the shadows. Parasitic buildings are more disruptive, upping corruption and lowering control. They also increase the chance of your cults being discovered in a settlement, meaning your cults can be booted out. The Warhammer world is a game board to the Changeling, and everyone in it are his pieces, all unwilling participants in his plots. This is how the Changeling has ultimate victory, by performing the ultimate scheme. But to get there, you need to perform multiple minor and grand schemes. Each theatre of war has its own set of schemes, all with different goals. Once you complete a minimum of 3 schemes in a theatre, you will be able to perform the grand scheme for that area. This unlocks a quest battle that you will need to win. Once you have completed 3 grand schemes, you will be able to unlock the ultimate scheme. Who you fight in this final battle will be determined by which grand scheme you have completed over the course of your campaign. One of the Changeling's greatest tricks is the ability to become anyone he wishes. You unlock new forms by defeating that lord or hero in battle, specific schemes, or diplomatic alliances. Once you've chosen which form you wish to take from the lords and heroes you have unlocked, you can transform into them freely in battle, inheriting their strengths and weaknesses. This opens up a huge number of tactical options when planning your grand strategies, and will always keep your opponent guessing. Comment which lord you would take into battle. To order or find out more about the game, check out the links below. Along with the assortment of existing units that the forces of Tzeentch can access, Shadows of Change brings a few more to the Raven Gods roster. Wherever these wandering wizards go, magic and carnage is sure to follow. The Blue Scribes are the new legendary hero. They are quick and have a nasty assortment of spells to send all running. The Cockatrice is a large, single-entity flying monster. All talons, beak and tail, there is no safe place when this winged monstrosity is around. An abomination is all there is to be said for this horror. All magic and muscle, the mutilith vortex beast is the last thing many see. The Sangor are rampaging, wielding monsters at heart. With Vanguard deployment, they can cause a lot of damage to the enemy. Echoed Hellbrass is your free LC hero, with high armor and a love of killing. You will also gain the Regiment of Renown units, the Sourguts, Shrieking Skyrays, and Aishan the Fallen. We hope you enjoyed this first look at the Changeling, his mechanics, and some of the new units that are coming to the Shadows of Change DLC. Yuanbo is next in the spotlight, so don't forget to subscribe so you know when that video drops. And if you wish to pre-order or learn more about the Shadows of Change DLC, all the usual links are in the description below.
Dude! Leave Toddy alone, man! He has had it rough over the last few decades. First he gets his eye gored out by a smelly goat, then he's left in limbo for 6 years, unplayable as a lord and without his own campaign. Now he's getting his ass beat by a ratty, slobbering Russian drunk with a 5-head, proceeds to steal his identity and social security number. Poor guy needs some lovin', man. Hell, maybe in Thrones of Decay by the end of the year, we will see. We're at an interesting crossroads for Warhammer 3 right now. Shadows of Change is likely to sell well no matter what, but a lot of the discussion since announcement yesterday has been centered around the price hike and the value proposition this one offers compared to previous DLCs, and a lot of that feedback has been fairly negative. Not exactly favorable and not without reason. One way to avoid that, of course, is by showing people what they're getting for their money and showing why it's worth that money, and with that in mind, the first gameplay preview for the Changeling just went live. If you're 6 minutes into this video, you've probably already seen it by now, so let's discuss. Kind of a weird walkthrough, honestly. Super short, especially compared to the 30-minute reveals we've gotten in the past, and the announcer kept telling me I can order, not pre-order, but just order, and leave my thoughts below, like that would somehow quench my desire to know more about his campaign right now, and he said it like 4 or 5 times in case we didn't quite understand the first go-around, which was weird, but yeah, there were certainly some interesting elements on display, and one of the most important is, of course, those juicy start positions. Always been a big proponent of varied starts. They can dramatically alter how fun a campaign is right from the jump, even before we get into unique campaign mechanics. But it looks like the Changeling will be smack dab in the middle of the old world, where the real party's at. For Realms of Chaos, he will begin in Nordland in the Northern Empire, and in Immortal Empires, he'll be in Stirland, just on the border of Sylvania. Pretty happy to see a Chaos character move away from Norska, Cathay, and the Chaos Wastes, especially a Tzeentch one. It's obviously not the first to do so, but there has been a lot of Cathay and Tzeentch interplay. It's kind of been played up since the announcement of Cathay before the release of Warhammer 3, and while I do like that area of the map quite a bit, it'll be nice to orient ourselves in a more traditional sandbox style in a more familiar location. Because you're going to have a lot of options for expansion based on those start positions alone, which will naturally be amplified by his semi-horde playstyle. You can travel pretty much any direction you want to right from the get-go, rather than being embroiled in a 50-turn war as is so often the case with Kairos and Village. But I think most players are going to establish a bunch of cults in the Empire before moving on. The good thing here is you don't have to stay there. You can keep moving. Moving on will be a simple thing because you don't have territory to defend. You have cults, both parasitic and symbiotic. These are basically undercities within another faction settlement that either help the town grow so that the money and grimoires you're skimming grow too, or leech the life, public order, and knowledge from it, destabilizing the surrounding region. Trickster cultists are one-shot heroes that can establish these cults and then die, and the Changeling can establish them when defeating a garrison as well. So you can choose to be a bit stealthier with the symbiotic cults, playing the long game and gaining more profit by keeping the city healthy and building towards tier 5, or you can focus on shit-stirring and drama, looting more grimoires and supplies in the short term, while pissing off the city, its inhabitants, building towards a rebellion, and risking discovery, where the witch hunters will then move in and summarily blam everyone with a pulse. But it's not just economic benefits when it comes to the beneficial cults. Apparently they also spread propaganda, improving diplomatic standing with you and your faction, and making them more likely to turn on nearby allies as well. While the parasite buildings spread corruption, or open rifts that spawn demonic armies to plunge a region into chaos. But the big thing for me is that the Changeling is still a semi-horde, which means you can recruit on the move from anywhere, and he ignores all trespassing penalties, which really opens up the map. The world will pretty much be your sandbox here, as cliche as that sounds, and yeah, you're still chaos. You'll presumably have diplomatic penalties with a bunch of Order factions anyway, but as long as he has some stealthy stances to work with to help him melt back into the shadows when a bunch of armies are chasing him down, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get a taste of the Empire management without its downsides, without being tied to a specific region and forced to fight there every time you start a campaign for 40 plus turns. And you have a ton of flexibility and replayability when it comes to military conquests and expansion where you head on the map. I also believe he'll have access to a teleporting mechanic for his main army via Trickster's Rifts, which should push that mobility even further. But all that is means to an end, because schemes are the ultimate goal and endgame you're building towards. Just like in the lore, where he enjoys pranking the Chaos Gods and causing war between Order races, your objectives are much more varied than the standard paint the map style we've grown accustomed to. There are 5 theaters of war in Realms of Chaos, presumably more in Immortal Empires, Naggaroth, Lustria, those kinds of places, not showing up on the Realms of Chaos one because they're not on that map, obviously, but they're all filled with minor schemes. Little mini objectives that, once completed, unlock a big battle and massive rewards for winning. The minor schemes let you do stuff like recruit a steam tank as a regiment of renown if you build a tier 5 loot building in Altdorf, or give you a special item if you sabotage a particular settlement, but the grand schemes are hugely impactful, and in the case of the Empire, will literally plunge all the elector counts into civil war on the campaign map, preventing them from joining your armies in the final battle, unlocking powerful upgrades and teleport rifts, and obtaining new forms to shift into. So, if you complete all the minor schemes in a theater of war, you unlock the grand scheme. Once you complete that, you start working your way towards the ultimate scheme, which will be the true endgame component. Apparently, this isn't all just on the campaign map either. With some proper planning, the example given is that you can shapeshift into the form of Orion, battling him in Athelorn while raining Skaven doom rockets down upon their armies, or acquire Khorne's chainsword to use against him, which sounds super badass, I'm not gonna lie. The gameplay reveal doesn't do a good job of showing just how far you can push those mechanics, or exactly what you can cook up once you get the ball rolling, but it certainly sounds like a unique and potentially hilarious approach to warfare if it's as customizable as the marketing material says. But as per usual, I would caution taking it at its word until we've actually seen those elements in practice, because it's easy for the marketing guys to get a bit carried away in their use of flowery language. I love the idea of being able to shift into the form of like Cetra, establishing cults throughout Nahakara, then forcing all the desert people into conflict with each other. It just sounds super thematic and entertaining. So to gain access to a form, the Changeling must defeat them, form an alliance with them, or complete certain schemes, and then his Formless Horror special rule will come into play. It has its own unique tab with every character in the game, and from there you can choose which body to take into battle. From the tab, it looks like you might have access to their full suite of abilities, although I didn't see Slaughter and Carnage the item on Skarbrand. I'm not sure if that's because he didn't have it unlocked in the campaign yet, or because items are just completely off the table. But if you can use whatever items those characters have as well, that will go a long way in encouraging tactical diversity. As I stated in the last vid though, I am worried that certain forms are just kinda gonna be automatic choices. Even if Karl Franz has access to Gal Maraz, which I kinda doubt when you're the Changeling turning into him, because why would you have access to the most powerful Warhammer on the planet? It's still under the care of the real Karl Franz. When you shapeshift into him, he'll be on foot, which means he's gonna be kinda terrible. That leaves Kugath, Nikari, Skarbrand, Kolek, Be'lakor, maybe a couple others as the automatic choices, both because they're easy to ally with, which means you'll have access to their forms early on, and because their base stats, abilities, and maneuverability are just so strong. There is no real reason to run Franz if he won't be on Deathclaw and he can't wield his hammer. So yeah, could be one of those really cool ideas on paper, but a bit limited in reality, and maybe that's okay. I think we all love the idea of role-playing in our campaigns. Having those kinds of options is great, but I think CA can go a little bit further in making sure that there's a reason to pick those kinds of lords like Alariel on foot, and giving them access to their items maybe would be the way to go. Giving them access to their mounts may be the way to go. But again, for some people, it's just going to be one of those things where, okay, that's a worse choice. I won't pick it. No big deal. I'll go with the Greater Demons, and maybe that's fine. Anyway, there are some fantastic additions for Tzeentch here. They seem to be eating really well. Zongors are a bit disappointing visually and tactically from what we can tell. Just basically blue gores with barrier. I'm not sure they're really carving out their own niche on a battlefield perspective either. But the heroes, both the Blue Scribes with their randomized spells and Echoed Hellbrass with Breath of Life healing, are both great additions, and the Mutalith Vortex Beast will be potentially game-changing for Tzeentch, on top of being an incredible model. Like, just a hyper scary and powerful unit if the stats and description match up. A Mortis engine that has mobility and is tanky is not something you see every day. The Changeling campaign looks to be a fairly unique take on Cult and Horde playstyles as well. Though naturally, there is some overlap and mechanic borrowing from other factions. It's never really bothered me. It sounds fun, flavorful, and that is certainly important. He's bringing something new to the table. Didn't learn a whole lot else on top of that, but I am hoping to see some gameplay that's more in-depth for the other two characters, perhaps in longer playthroughs. We'll be having a discussion about pricing and what it means for the series very soon, and we will not have long to wait for real gameplay and battles either. So stay tuned. Hope to see you all there. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.